So, Aspen, thank you for that welcome, because this is actually the first time she has ever been to Aspen. So give her a round of applause. And let's be real, that would not happen if it wasn't for Dar and all the people at Aspen who moved every mountain possible to make this happen. So thank you, Aspen, for giving us this special moment. Dr. King, welcome to Aspen.
Thank you.
I'm challenged to meet the moment here, because we heard so many great speakers before us talk about really big topics. So I'm going to jump right into it with you. This has been a big week for you. You had in the news, the government released all these files on your father. You are in the forefront of protecting, keeping, and pushing that legacy forward. Talk to us a little bit about this moment in time for you. And as someone who is not just a keeper of your father's legacy, but is reshaping it to keep it relevant and on the tips of the tongues and the minds of leaders today.
So first of all, let me thank Dar, Aspen. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. Thank you, Ashley. Let me say it like this. I remember my mother saying often, if we're going to create a just, humane, equitable, and peaceful world, we have to go by Martin. She said that over and over again. She believed in that so much, that's why when he was assassinated, she decided very early to create an institution as the official living memorial to his life, work, and legacy, which I'm now the CEO of. How many of you all know that my father was one of the most hated persons in America back when he was assassinated? Yeah. Have you thought about why he's one of the most loved persons now across the globe? Have you really thought about that? Some people say because he was a great orator, because of the great work he did. He was a great leader. He was extremely intellectual and studied, yet humble in his leadership. He led one of the greatest movements that arguably we should give more credence to in terms of our society not being as is divided now, but further divided than it is now. But that's true about him. But what's more true is that Coretta Scott King was very intentional and strategic in ensuring that that legacy, that work, would be institutionalized in our world. And that's why 57 years after the assassination, we're not just honoring him, commemorating him, celebrating him. You are studying him. People across the world are studying him. And there needs to be more of that because he left us with some incredible teachings. She left us with incredible teachings that our world need.
And let's lean into that, because you got on your Be Love shirt today. This is part of her brand is Be Love.
Justice, freedom, democracy.
That's right. So when we talk about love all the time, someone mentioned it earlier, how powerful it is, that it's the most powerful tool we have to change this world. But we also know these are tough times, and it's really hard to love our enemies. We all think about all the people we disagree with. How do you think your father's world and viewpoint would be most effective now in helping us learn to not only love our neighbors, but to also even have a love for those who we vehemently disagree with?
So part of creating the King Center was to ensure that his nonviolent legacy would continue forward. Most people think of nonviolence as social justice work. My father actually lived it and taught it as a way of life. So my mother wanted to ensure that we would have those teachings so that we can begin to lean into this love-centered way, because at the King Center, we define it as a love-centered way of thinking, speaking, acting, and engaging that leads to personal, cultural, and societal transformation. And it's grounded in that love, centered in love, but more importantly, because of my father's faith as well as his various studies, he understood the inherent dignity of all human beings, even your enemies, even your adversaries, even those who are not lovable and unkind.
And even your mother talked about violence in this sense of not just being physical, and that kind of leans into that a little.
Yeah, so starving a child is violent. Because again, if you think about it, it's that love-centered way that honors the dignity of every human being. That's what the beloved community is about. And so nonviolence is that pathway. It's not just a philosophical framework, it's a methodological framework as well. So it gives us practical ways to do that. So we teach through the principles and steps of nonviolence that people can go to they can Google it, but you have to really study it and go deep into it. And everything that's been talked about here is what comes out of that. It's about an other-centeredness. You know, Daddy felt that other-centeredness was more important than self-centeredness because he felt that in being other-centered, you are preserving the self because that's the way the world is set up, that if you don't look out for other selves, eventually it kind of comes back. And we see that even today. So, you know, the work that we do is incredibly important. I want to ensure that we are raising up more leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., because I think if we had more like him, this world, we wouldn't be having all these conversations that we're having. That's my personal belief.
Yeah. And as we look at this world where we are now, and you talk about nonviolence, and you talk about the extremes. Mm-hmm. How would you talk about your father's call for us to be brothers and sisters? This ultimate question of chaos or community. Where do we lean into that now?
So how many have read Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? That World House chapter is very important for where we are today, especially in the technologically driven society. He talked about, you know, the chasm between the advancement technologically and scientifically and our moral and ethical advancement. There's a lag there, and we have to figure out how to bridge, because if we don't, we'll destroy ourselves in the misuse of our own instruments. So he challenged us in that writing to figure out, now that we have created this worldwide neighborhood, we can connect. We heard that word today, but have we truly connected as a human family? Have we connected as brother and sister? So he challenged us to learn to live together as brothers and sisters. What I see missing in our world today is there's no intentionality around that, you know, especially now. You know, and I think in this room, you all have a lot of influence in many spaces and places. And I think we have to be intentional about waking up every day and saying, is what I'm involved in, is what I'm setting out to do even today, is what I said, you know, is it leading us to a place where we're learning how to live together as brothers and sisters? We have to be intentional about that, because if not, we'll further divide. We'll go into that, as he said, violence is a descending spiral. But we need people who are intentional about changing the direction, the narrative, you know, that because people are adversary, they're unkind, they're unlovable, they're not compassionate, they're mean-spirited, and they act very evil. How do we deal with that? We don't dismiss the behavior, we challenge that, but what we do is we don't call people out, we call them in and up. Mm-hmm. And that's the work that we have to do every day.
Amen to that. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Bernice A. King, thank you so much, Dr. King, for your time today.